folks, welcome to the channel Rockin' the Country, where I react to non-pop country music. And I also will do sort of, on occasion, a feature of an artist, whatever it may be, telling a story, or someone else, telling a story about them, or an interview with them, or what have you. This is Vince Gill. I'm being invited by Eric Clapton to Eric's Crossroads Festival, which is, Eric, I think, was doing it every other year. I don't know if he still does it, but Eric would invite the people he considered to be the top guitarists in the business to perform at this festival. I assume it was in the UK, so I'm wearing Britain's hat, the flag. It's not the Union Jack, though. That's different, but nonetheless, we're just going to listen and talk about how there's really a lot of information. It's only about 5 minutes long. It's a much longer clip. I'm going to put the link to the place. It was the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum channel. And there's some really good stuff over there on all different types of artists. But this was on Vince. And I said, I got to bring this to you guys because there's information that Vince presents, just sort of gives you more of the background of his musical life story and trajectory.
How'd you get involved with the Crossroads concerts?
Oh man, that was a call that I couldn't believe I was getting, truthfully. It was at a period, this like, I think around 2003. And I'd had this run of pretty great success with hits and being, fairly well received at radio. And I just started to see it kind of going the other way, That's what I tell all these young kids. I go, hey, don't let this go to your head. They quit playing Elvis, so they're going to quit playing you. So be prepared.
Yeah.
And so I was in that transition, and I was kind of going, okay, what's next? Where's my next place, of where I'm going to find to land. And I'm home one day and the phone rings and I answer it. And the voice says, hello, Vince, it's Eric Clapton. I just wanted to call and see what you're up to, And I said, yeah, right, sure it is. Who's yanking my chain? I thought I've been a prankster forever. We were always trying to prank each other, so I thought it was somebody with a fake English accent trying to yank my.
That was a pretty good one.
And he starts laughing. He goes, no, Vince, it really is. It's Eric. I said, well, whatever you want. The answer is yes.
No kidding.
And he said something real simple to me. He just said, I've decided to have this guitar festival in Dallas.
Oh, Dallas.
Next summer, and I'm only inviting guitar players I like. And he said that to me.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'm in, and what it did, he didn't know that. I've gotten to tell him that, but it reaffirmed what I'd always hoped people saw me as.
Yeah.
Was a musician.
Yeah.
And to be seen by him as that meant everything to me.
Yeah.
So I just said, yeah, job well done. That's how I hoped I'd be seen. And a lot of times I don't know that in the height of all that, country music success and having a bunch of, I think people see the singer and the song and that's about it sometimes, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But
I'll pause him real quick. That's why not only do I stop, but I comment because there's so much more that goes on in the production of a song and the writing of a song, and where did that idea come from, and I just love to assess like all the dynamics as much as comes to mind when I hear a song for a first time, because these are human beings putting their thought into the notes they're going to hit, the tempo that's going to be in, the mixing side of it, how they're going to bring instruments in, what have you. But to know that Vince wanted first to be considered as a musician, like as a guitarist, as a musician, not as a vocalist, not as an entertainer or a songwriter, but as a musician, that gives you background into what his heart and soul is when you hear one of his songs now.
I'm one of the minority people that I like all the fringy stuff and how it gets all put together and
yeah, me too,
and whatnot. So getting to go do that festival and meeting all those great guitar heroes that I got to meet and be thought of as one of them was, the best part about that story was Amy went with me. And so I think I was sandwiched in between Joe Walsh and James
I was
Taylor.
there.
So I'm going, oh God, I couldn't be in a worse place. Joe Walsh is the most loved person by a crowd I've ever seen in my whole life to this day, still.
From Montclair, New
And
Jersey.
so I think I was after Joe and before James or something like that. And so I'm going, oh boy, here comes the country guy, the token country guy. And Amy said to me before I went out there, she goes, I'm going to go out there in the crowd. I want to experience this out in the middle of it. I said, okay. She said she came back after it was all done. And I started with Oklahoma Borderline, a real ripper, that would really hopefully get me off on a good foot with that crowd. Probably not a lot of them were that keen on who I was and knew much about me. So I knew that going in. But she said it was so funny. She says, you went out, they introduced you, and you started playing. And she said the people just started filing out in mass, to go get a beer, go get a hot dog, whatever she said. And they're all in the process of filing out. I said, you started playing that solo in Oklahoma Borderline. She says, they all stopped. And they all turned around and they all came back. And they all came back into their seats, She says, it was really cool from my perspective to see that,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a little bit different, like I said, I was kind of the token country guy at those Crossroads Festival shows, and they knew I'd had a great band, and they knew we could back up, and we were always kind of a house band of sorts for half a dozen folks that would come and play in our band. And
Who did you take with you for that?
oh gosh, who was Willie Weeks, Billy Thomas, Tom Britt, Pete, John Hobbs, Don Sears, Jeff White, and I think that was who was at that first one. And I don't remember. I can't, with a straight face, say who all we backed up.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful.
I'll cut it there. And how good is that though? Just to know some of the backstory of one human being's trajectory. I mean, like Vince even said, he goes, he'd had a number of hits, but I guess the radio hadn't been playing him as much. And so he said, but let that be a lesson to like you up and coming artists that they're going to stop playing you at some point. I mean, they stop. And when he said they stopped playing Elvis, you're like, oh, things move on. They do. So that's good perspective. But I love hearing Vince's stories and that, what it meant to him to have Eric Clapton call him. And I'm picturing myself like, wow, these artists really do admire other artists when other people, and I love that it isn't a matter of jealousy. He's like, whatever it is, yes. Like, because that's how much respect Vince had for Eric. Here's a country artist knew who a rocker was. Of course he does, because you don't stay within one genre. You respect other artists and love what they do. There are folks that love, country folks. A lot of them like rock and roll. A lot of them love it. And anyhow, just wanted to leave that. That's unrated. I think I may still have my off-road series. I'll put it in there if I still have it. Otherwise, I'll just leave it as it is in general population. All right, guys, I look forward to your comments on this. Have a great day. See you on another video and keep rocking the country.